Namaste and welcome to this special interaction on Organiser YouTube channel. As you know, entire nation uh, is celebrating tricentenary of Lokmata Ahilyabai, a unique administrator, queen, a devout Hindu who, in very difficult times, actually set the new standards for governance. And therefore, it is necessary to understand why such iconic figures should be celebrated. And to discuss all about that, we have with us Captain Meera Siddharth Dave. Meeraji is a retired Indian Army officer. She's a researcher, entrepreneur. She's alumni of IIM Ahmedabad. But most importantly, now she's also working uh, as a secretary for this tricentenary celebration committee, which has inaugurated the program in the last month on the occasion of Devi Ahilyabai's birth centenary at Indore. So she has officially taken the responsibility as the secretary. So welcome, Miraji, and first of all, congratulations and best wishes for this new responsibility.
धन्यवाद। नमस्कार प्रफुल्ल जी, आपको और ऑर्गेनाइजर के सभी दर्शकों को। एंड yes, it is a very important responsibility which has been given to me because Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar is one such figure that she has excelled and proved herself in each and every field you pick up. As you just mentioned in the start, be it administration, be it military strategy, be it a religious kind of thought process, installation, rebuilding the and doing the reconstruction of the temples. She was benevolent. She had that kind of vision. She had a vision. So आप कोई भी feel ले लीजिए, she has uh, reached a level and has marked a position in such a manner that anyone and everyone reading her life would always benefit and get to know the maximum about where her thought processes, her ways of working, and will be able to reach to a certain kind of a stage in his or her life and benefit in his or her life. So it is a big responsibility. Yes, thank you.
So we will come to the various dimensions of Ahilyabai. But tell me about the this tricentenary celebration committee. What is the concept behind it? Who are the people associated, and what are the plans throughout the year so that the people at large at the national level can uh, you know celebrate and participate in this great event?
Sure, sure. And at the start of it, I would also want to congratulate organizer that organizer is taking up this important event and putting up Lokmata Ahilyabai's life in such a manner that it reaches to each and every Bharatiya and the listeners outside Bharat as well. So congratulations for that. About Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar Tri Shatabdi Samaro. So as you rightly mentioned that this Samaro started from 31st of May 2024 and it is a year-long celebration will continue till 31st May 2025. So this entire 1 year will be of celebrating the life of Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar, her ways of working in different kind of field, and we have ensured that we have shortlisted around 12 such places in entire Bharat where she has worked directly and her work has given an impact to the society. So this has started in Indore. Of course, we all know that that is where she ruled as Subedar of the Holkars, and it will end in Maheshwar. So after the demise of her son, then she shifted her capital to Maheshwar, and she started working in Maheshwar. It was very religious process of being in Maheshwar. She started working at the banks of Mata Narmada, River Narmada. And she also developed Maheshwar as the cultural and art capital of entire Bharat as well. So this 12 different places which we are thinking of are Rameshwar, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chondi, that is our birthplace, Mumbai, Somnath. We all know that it was Somnath Mandir, the Jyotirling, which she reconstructed. Maheshwar, Pushkar, Kashi, Vrindavan, Jagannath, Kumbh. So these are few places where the Samaro Samiti decides on putting up a huge event for the public. And along this entire year, the three Ahilyabai Tri Shatabdi Samaro Samiti also intends to reach out to the people in different manners. So, reaching out to the universities, college, the normal people, in a manner that they understand the life. In which manner? या वो नाटक से हो सकता है या वो elocution competition से हो सकता है. There are different kind of painting competition, essay writing competition. Of course, lectures are a part of it, wherein there are many such people out there here in Bharat who have studied Lokmata in detail. So इन सब अलग-अलग माध्यम से हम आम जनता और we want to reach to the last mile to let them understand that this is the historian they had in their golden past. And we have eminent personalities who have joined the entire committee. Padma Vibhushan Sonal Man Singh ji, and also she is the Rajya Sabha member. She is the Sanrakshak of the Samiti, along with her Padma Bhushan Sumitra Mahajan Tai. She is also the Sanrakshak of the committee. And Professor Chandrakala Padya, she is the chairperson of the entire committee. So we have included the members from different fields of art, literature. There are many vice chancellors of the university and administrators. We have former chief secretaries in the member committees. The only reason behind forming such a committee is that we want to touch each and every field of the society. And very much important is we have tried and covered entire Bharat from different regions. The members have been they have come together, and so that they can reach the people out there in the field, and the entire purpose of this Samaro Samiti can be fulfilled.
Uh, Fantastic. I hope the role and contribution of Ahilyabai reaches to each and every corner of Bharat. But I have a very intriguing question about Ahilyabai, her times, and the popular perceptions that we have about those times. You have been a researcher and you know very well that generally it is believed that before British started the formal education system here, the role of women in India was very minuscule. In fact, they were completely downtrodden, exploited. Almost every widow was going sati. They had no educational opportunities. They did not have any role in the larger political or social processes. And we have one like Ahilyabai, who became a great administrator, who restored the temples, who revived the water bodies, who constructed larger highways. She had a clear policy for environmental conservation and tree plantation. She formalized the land revenue system. And when she was at her peak, she was a widow. She came from in today's political parlance, from a OBC caste. And
Yes.
still she could reach to this level. And common people considered her as a Lokmata. The intellectuals called her Punyashlok. So how was this possible? Either our perception is wrong or Ahilyabai did something extraordinary. That's why she could reach there. how what is your understanding?
Uh, I would start since you mentioned about the perception, pathology, and is it what is our perception today and it didn't exist then? That is, I'm talking about 300 years back. So I would start with that point. You very rightly mentioned Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar was born to Patil Mankoji Shinde in Chondi, right, Maharashtra. Now, this is the Dangar clan that today is being mentioned as an OBC. It comes under OBC. But as I mentioned, उनके नाम के आगे, उनके पिताजी के नाम के आगे था पाटिल मानतो जी. Now, Patil is Pradhan. They had a status in the society because of their work, because of their thought process they're doing to the society, इसलिए उनको प्रधान माना जाता था. तो आज के उपलक्ष्य में अगर हम बात करें प्रधान, अगर कोई भी सुनेगा तो बोले अच्छा प्रधान है, मतलब he is a well to do person, he does something for the society. That is how exactly it is today. Now when we have brought that clan into the OBC, as you mentioned about the perception, we start thinking अरे ये तो OBC है, but it didn't exist then. We can think like we can prove this from this particular fact कि उनका जन्म कहाँ हुआ था. Not only that, where she got married from this particular family. Now, from this family, she gets married to the Holkars, who were one of the strongest arm of Peshwas. Now, Subedar Mahar Rao, who was her father-in-law, आप thought process देखिए तब का. What he saw in that small 8-year-old girl was her piousness, her thought for the people, her vision. 80-year-old. But हमारी संस्कृति में, हमारे सनातन में, हमारे शास्त्रों में एज से कुछ लेना देना नहीं होता आपके मेंटल थॉट प्रोसेस का. So your mental ages can always be much more older than your physical age. And that is what Subedar Malhar Rao saw in the 8-year-old Ahilyabai then. So that is the perception which again comes into play. Now comes that you're very right. बात सती की होती है when her husband he demised, and she also wanted to perform sati because that was the ritual. It was her father-in-law which who persuaded her in a manner that I look up to you as my son and not my daughter-in-law, and you have the capacities to work for the society, work for the people, and do something for the nation. You cannot do this crime. And that is how she worked upon the sati entire जो प्रथा चली आ रही है. And we all know why this was. It was because of the Mughal invasion. We all know ये कुप्रथा क्यों. ये कभी भी भारत के सनातन में ये प्रथा नहीं थी. ये हुआ क्योंकि मुगल्स का इन्वेजन हुआ, and we knew how that thought process exactly was. And that is why unfortunately this evil practice had to be conducted. That is one thing. Second, she always meant to lead by example. तो जब हम यहाँ पे महिलाओं की बात करते हैं, so I would want to put about few examples of what she did in her lifetime, wherein she led by example. Unfortunately, so Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar had a very tough and a very sad personal life. Why I would say so? Because in her living time, she saw demise of 5 male members and 12 female members of her own family, starting from her father-in-law, her husband, her son, her grandson, and all her daughter-in-laws, her daughter. So it's a very difficult situation in her life. I mean, she lost her husband at a tender age of late 20s. And when she was given, her father-in-law played a very important role. Her mother-in-law played a very, very important role in building her entire thought process. See, हमारे संस्कृति में, सनातन संस्कृति में हम सदैव ये मानते हैं, कोई भी जीव इस पृथ्वी पे जन्म लेता है, उसकी नियति के साथ जन्म लेता है, और उसके अंदर कुछ निहित होता है, उसकी वजह से वो जन्म लेता है. लेकिन यहाँ पे अहिल्याबाई होलकर के ससुर और सास ने उनके पूरे जीवन को किस हिसाब से ढाला, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. बिकॉज शी वॉज एट अ वेरी टेंडर एज व्हेन शी गॉट मैरिड एंड केम टू दी होलकर्स. So she imbibed all of those qualities within her. And even after so much of difficult situation, when so much of her loved and dear ones she saw the death of them in front of her eyes, उनके फादर इन लॉ ने उनको एक चीज बोली थी कि इट इज यू हु हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ द पीपल ऑफ दिस नेशन. They are your subjects, and that has to be first always. The nation has to be first. Sanatan has to be first always, and that was there engraved in her mind. तो बात आती है कि जब at last no male member was left in her family alive, and that was the unfortunate times when, because during that time it was like कि कोई मेल होने से तो राज्य की दो बार डोर जो है वो उनके हाथ में होनी चाहिए, तो सूबेदार has to be a male, and there was no male member left in her family, unfortunately. So this happened somewhere in 1966 67, sorry, 1766 67. um, that is when it so unfortunate thing that Raghunath Rao, who had fought many wars along with her and her father-in-law, somehow turns rogue. And it so happens is that because of the internal conflict, and there's a long story, but we'll have, in the paucity of time, I'll cut it short. So internal conflict happens, and they decide to invade Holkar Rajya, thinking that now there is no ruler of Holkar Rajya. So that is when she comes to know that now her Holkar Rajya is about to be invaded by the Peshwa's uncle then. So she writes a letter to the Peshwa that now it's time that you give me the Subedari. And he grants her the Subedari. As soon as it is being done, the first thing she does is that she trains the women of her state. She makes her own army of 500,000 women in her state. She teaches them the war methods. Along with that, she writes to her other allies that this is the kind of situation, you keep your army ready whenever in need. Now, this is the kind of thought process, this is the kind of strategy she puts in. And she had this vision, she had this foresight. So in army, we always say you have to be ready with plan A, plan B, and plan C, which she very well executed. After everything was done, she was absolutely prepared. And when she knew that Raghunath Bhau, he was there on the other bank of Shipra Nadi, and she wrote a letter to him mentioning that you want to have a fight with us. We are absolutely ready. My entire women army is ready to come on head on with your army. And my allies are also ready. If you want, you can always come and fight with us. But remember, she mentioned two things that remember, if you even win this war, you will always be written as an ashamed character in the history because you fought with females. And unfortunately, if you lose the war, then you will not have a face to be seen anywhere because आप जो है महिलाओं से हार. Now, this was her mental intellect which we are talking about. ऐसा नहीं था कि केवल वो मेंटली ही स्ट्रांग थी. शी हैड हर, हम चेस में अगर बात करें तो उन्होंने पूरी जो है अपने बिसात बिछा के रखी
And
थी.
it was
होता
a
क्या
sort of
था?
a sort of cyber also, as we talked today.
Absolutely, psychological warfare is very much important in military strategy. So this was a military strategy. She led by example, which forced him to say that अरे आप बोल रहे थे ये विधवा अबला नारी है, ये विधवा नारी अबला नारी नहीं है, ये तो एक शेरनी की स्वर है और मैं इस शेरनी से युद्ध नहीं कर सकता. And he said, no, sorry, I had come here to pay condolences for your son's demise. So that is the kind of thought process she had. There was one more thing she led by example. हम बात करते हैं महिला की तो military style of working. See, since you are called an army officer on your show, you will have much thing which is related to the military because it is very much important. क्योंकि हम जब पीछे मुड़ के देखते हैं, हम ये कहते हैं, and we also know that when it comes to the armed forces, it is known as a male bastion, right? But such kind of illuminary historians which we have in our history, they prove this absolutely wrong. And the reason is क्योंकि हमारे शास्त्र, हमारे संस्कृति ये कहती है कि शक्ति वो केंद्र है जिसकी शिव भी आराधना करते हैं. सो दैट हैज बीन आवर संस्कृति, एंड हम उस शक्ति के पुंज है तो वो शक्ति है जिससे ये पूरा सिविलाइजेशन बना है, एंड दैट इज द वुमेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, एंड दैट इज द वुमेन व्हिच हैव प्रूव्ड देम इन द हिस्ट्री. नाउ वी हैव टू जस्ट रीड देम, learn them, understand them, know our worth, and act for the nation, for the society. And that's why I'm mentioning this. So I'm talking about the military training. There came the time when slowly and gradually, after the demise of Aurangzeb, slowly and gradually the Mughal era was coming to an end, and the Britishers were taking over, unfortunately, the charge of Bharat. And that is the time when जो सभी अलग अलग किंगडम्स थे, उन्होंने अपनी मिलिट्री पद्धति को चेंज करना शुरू किया. And they started building their military warfare in the European style with the
mm,
help of the Britishers officers. The British officers थे आर्मी के, उनके थ्रू. But against this, they had to give a free way to those British officers to the kingdom, direct access to the kingdom. Ahilyabai Holkar was very clear, and she, in her letter to Peshwa, very clearly mentioned कि आप एक बाप को तो लड़के मार सकते हैं सामने, बट जो ब्रिटिशर्स है वो एक भालू रीछ की तरह है. वो टॉकिंग शी इक्वेटेड द ब्रिटिशर्स विद बेयर. वो ऐसा ब्रिटिशर्स ऐसे है कि अगर तो आपने उनको फेस पे मारा तो ठीक है, बट इफ यू कम इन द कैप्टिविटी दे वुड किल बाय टिकलिंग यू. That's the kind of ways of working these Britishers had. So you should never give them the direct access to your kingdom. That is when, look at the vision she had. It was amazing when you read her, that she did not adopt the way other kingdoms were doing. What she
mm,
did is that she called American colonel in the kingdom and asked him to train her soldiers. And the best part is that she kept him as an employee and paid him salary so that he doesn't have a direct access to her kingdom. And this made her different from any and every ruler which existed then. So this is leading by example. She fought wars. We all know that she has fought wars, right? But these are few strategies. These are few thought process. The vision which which not only helped the people who were there then, but also it helped the people who were going to come in the next generation.
mm, mm,
So, and the best part is that she had an amazing knowledge of artillery. When her father-in-law was fighting up there in north, and he wanted the support of artillery, she developed industry of cannon making industry in Gwalior.
mm,
और द बेस्ट पार्ट इज कि उन्होंने जो नाम रखे थे कैनन बॉल्स के, वो थे ज्वाला भवानी, जयंती. Now look at this thought. Unfortunately, this has come from the Britishers. What's there in the name?
mm.
But शेक्सपियर says so. But हमारी सनातन संस्कृति ये भली भांति जानती है that it's the name which creates the impact. फिर ये हमें
No,
अहिल्याबाई
but
होलकर से
while quoting so, Miraji, while quoting so, you have to say that Shakespeare said so.
yeah, I
That
can
means there
mention
is
that.
something in name. Yeah.
Absolutely right. So he ensured that his name stays while saying there is what's there in the name. So this shows the hypocrisy, or you would want to say the short-sightedness, or you would want to say the half-cooked knowledge they had. So it was just to show they wanted to create, but हमारी सनातन संस्कृति में. And again, I would want to say this to you, प्रफुल जी, आपके ऑर्गेनाइजर के व्यूअर्स को मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ, क्यों मैं बार बार सनातन का वर्ड यूज कर रही हूँ, संस्कृति यूज कर रही हूँ, बिकॉज these words don't have a meaning or a name in English which gives the right meaning. So उनका कोई इंग्लिश वर्ड हो नहीं सकता. अगर आपको इंग्लिश में भी यूज करना है तो सनातन और संस्कृति ही यूज करना पड़ेगा. So it is something
So
like that.
thank you for clarifying. You know the way we thought about the status of women. It was based on their character, and the based on their deeds. They reached as you know, Megasthenes had also written in Indica that this is the first country I have seen. I have traveled from Europe to Asia, entire continent after continent. This is the first country which I have seen were ruled by queens. So it means we had a tradition of, you know, women rulers, and Ahilyabai is, you know, one of the shining stars among them. But there is another aspect to it. due to colonial perception, there is a uh, confusion about this entire nation and state construct. Now, it is again a very curious question for me. Relatively, Indore or the Subedari of Holkar, so was a very limited, territory. But you took the name of Somnath. We know what Ahilyabai did at Kashi Ghats. We know what she did at Shailam or Rameshwaram. So they were out of her state purview. It means that somewhere there was a common national consciousness, though the state boundaries are limited. How could she do that? Means because otherwise, easily people could have said two things. One, a widow, a non-Brahmin. Why should she get into a revival of temples? And two, her state has a limited boundary. Why should she interfere in other state territories? So, how do you see this historically, and how should we see this while developing perceptions about Bharat as a ancient Rashtra, as we say in our Vedas and Puranas, and the modern construct of nation states that Europeans have tried to impose on us?
True. It's an amazing question. Thank you, Prafulji, for putting up this question because this question encompasses lot many different purviews when you look at it. I would want to start with mentioning that a leader, a person becomes a leader when the person has a vision. And when a person has a vision, it can never be limited. So when we mention that why only not till the state boundaries and why going out to the entire Bharat as a Rashtra, because she was a leader. She had that leadership qualities. She had that vision. That is where I want to start with. So you mentioned about that जो पूरी उन्होंने काम किए या the entire Bharat Rashtra, she not only helped or she not only worked towards the reconstruction of the mandirs, she also built roads, she built wells, she built such kind of roads which had a canopy of trees which helped the travelers, dharamshala and not many things. But here I would like to take the note of mandir because उसमें काफी और कुछ है जो साथ में मैं ऐड करना चाहती हूँ. So हम हिस्ट्री में अच्छी तरीके से जानते हैं कि मैक्सिमम डिस्ट्रक्शन जो मुगल द्वारा हुआ वो हमारे ज्योतिर्लिंग का हुआ. ये आपने भी बताया, चाहे वो काशी विश्वनाथ हो, रामेश्वर हो, भीमा शंकर हो, मैक्सिमम ज्योतिर्लिंग, मथुरा वृंदावन के सभी मंदिर उन्होंने नष्ट किए. तो हम ये भी जानते हैं कि लोकमाता अहिल्याबाई होलकर ने इनका रिकंस्ट्रक्शन किया. But I'm sure many of your viewers would not know that how she managed the finances of, which I would want to put light on it. So it so happened, as I mentioned, that her father-in-law was her first teacher and her mother-in-law was her first teacher. And Subedar Malhar Rao always ensured that whenever they fought a war and money which came, gets divided into three parts. The first part is dollar, which is given to the army, क्योंकि सेना को सशक्त होना बहुत आवश्यक है आपके राष्ट्र को बचाने के लिए और दूसरों के राष्ट्र को बचाने के लिए. तो वो भी सेना, डॉलर, one part goes there. The second part used to go to the Peshwas as tax. And the third part was named as Khasgi. What does Khasgi mean? Khasgi means private. Now, this money which goes to Khasgi was given for the use of private use of women for the household needs. Now, important thing here is that when Subedar Malhar Rao, after his death, he left 16 crore in the Khasgi. I'm talking about 250 years back, 16 crore. आज आप zero zero लगा दोगे तो भी थक जाएंगे, उतने zeros पीछे लगेंगे, तो 16 crore. Now, important things comes here. When Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar took over as Subedar of Holkar, this entire 16 crore, since it was in the Khasgi, it can very well belong to her because it was the private money for the women. She could have very much used it, saying that this is my money left by my father-in-law. You know what she did? She conducted a puja, and after the puja, उन्होंने उस 16 करोड़ का जो पूरा धन था उस पे तुलसी पत्र रख दिया. And she said that this entire wealth belongs to my public, my society, क्योंकि ये मेरे नहीं महादेव के पैसे. Now look at the thought process, the kind of thinking she had. This entire money was then used in the reconstruction of all this जो मंदिर जो destroy किए गए हैं उनके reconstruction के लिए. So this also is very much important, that how she used the money, which money she used, and where she used. Now it was not only that कि उन्होंने ये पैसे यूज कर लिए, कहाँ यूज किए. हम सब जानते हैं मोरपंथ जी, Marathi poet, very well known Marathi poet. He was in Varanasi, and he saw कि औरंगजेब had destroyed the काशी विश्वनाथ मंदिर और वहां पे उन्होंने मस्जिद खड़ी कर दी, और वहां पे ज्ञानवापी मस्जिद जो है वो खड़ी कर दी. उसके बगल में मंदिर निर्माण हो रहा है काशी विश्वनाथ का. तो उन्होंने वहां पूछा कि क्या हो रहा है, कैसे हो रहा है, तो तब बताया गया कि ये लोकमाता अहिल्याबाई होलकर के उससे हो रहा है. So he was intrigued by these, and he had many questions in his mind. So he came to Maheshwar then. There was one more reason why he came to Maheshwar, as I mentioned in the start of our program, that Maheshwar was the art and culture capital. And Lokmata had this vision that जो भी आर्टिस्ट है, जो भी कला है, चाहे वो खाने की, कढ़ाई बुनाई की, क्लॉथ की, गाने की, कुछ भी हो, वो महेश्वर उसका कैपिटल होना चाहिए. शी हैड दिस विजन. सो मोरपंथ जी ही came to Maheshwar and wanted to meet Lokmata Ahilyabai. Okay, as she came to know that Morapanth ji is here, she invited him with all importance. And when he came there, he asked this one question to Lokmata. कि मुझे पता चला आप वहां पे काशी विश्वनाथ का मंदिर बना रहे, ज्ञानवापी मस्जिद के बिल्कुल बगल में, जहां हमारा मंदिर तोड़ा गया था औरंगजेब के द्वारा. वही क्यों बना रहे हैं आप, और कहीं क्यों नहीं बना. अब जो आपने भी प्रश्न पूछा ना, वो भी इसका जवाब आता है कि क्यों ये थॉट प्रोसेस, क्यों अपने स्टेट से बाहर जाके उन्होंने ये कार्य किए. तब लोकमाता, दिस हिस्ट्री रिकॉर्ड्स दिस स्टेटमेंट, एंड लोकमाता सेज दैट unfortunately so, Hindus are very tolerant and forgiving. They would easily forget the stars given to them when their own Jyotirling, which is so important in their entire life, has been destroyed. और वही जब मंदिर बनेगा, ये चीज उनको अपने सनातन की, उसकी रक्षा करने की याद दिलाती रहेगी, जो बहुत आवश्यक है अपने सनातन को बचाने के लिए, अपनी संस्कृति को जानने के लिए. वरना ऐसे ही संस्कृति नष्ट हो जाएगी और हमारा अस्तित्व नष्ट हो जाएगा. नाउ दिस इज द काइंड. सो अगर वो अपने स्टेट में रहते और ये करते, तो उनका जो थॉट प्रोसेस था, उनका जो विजन था कि पूरे सनातन की रक्षा करनी है अगर हमें, तो हमें, we don't have to be short sighted at all, which is only limited to state. It has to be, क्योंकि भारत हमारा पूरा राष्ट्र है. It is my nation, and it is my responsibility that I have to work for this nation. So this was the kind of thought process she had.
So it simply means if a ruler had a vision and the thought process for entire Sanatan and nationhood, people would never object even in intervention or working something good in their territories. Those the state boundaries were not like nation state boundaries of Europe, but they were more a kind of governance arrangement for tax collection. But when it comes to the cultural connect, the Sanskritic sambandh, it was more innate and people to people rather than state to state.
Yes, 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 absolutely
That's why
right.
otherwise by then Somnath was almost controlled by Junagadh or Nawabs, and still she could go and save the Jyotirling there, reconstruct the temple there. So here comes my another question, Miraji. Uh, Another important aspect of her life is about, you talked about the trees and the canopies she created throughout the roads, the water bodies she revived. Today we talk a lot about climate change and environmental degradation. You know, uh, I'm sure there was no consultancy or consulting agency who was giving her some PowerPoint presentation about the status of, but it was somewhere in the her thought process and governance structure itself. So, do you find while doing the research on her that why she particularly focused on creating water bodies or reviving water bodies or interconnecting even some of the canals. So
Yes.
what was that thought process?
Yes, very much. She always believed and she always worked this on ground that जल सबसे important तत्व है जीवन में. And either it is used for normal drinking or normal purposes, or it is required for agriculture as well. And that is why she built villages. She ensured irrigation canals, which helped in the agriculture. She had tanks made and everything. बोले वेल बनाना, टैंक्स बनाना कौन सी बड़ी बात है? तो बड़ी बात यहाँ ये हो जाती है द काइंड ऑफ वेल शी बिल्ड. एंड इवन टुडे वी हैव द प्रूफ ऑफ द वेल शी, which is around 250 years old. वो well covered है. So you can add on the picture if you want for your viewers that how that well exactly it is. It is like an igloo kind of a well. So it
Mhm.
is entirely covered with a small window from where the water can be taken, with her thought process that this well should not get contaminated. The water should not get dirty and contaminated. अन्यथा उसका कोई काम ही नहीं बचेगा, कोई उससे जलपान कर नहीं पाएगा. So, this well which I'm talking about here is, it is at Thulghat. Now, the location of this well is very much important. Thulghat is at the old trade route across the Sayadris,
Mm.
connecting the Satna and Khandesh region with the coastal towns of Kalyan and Supar. Now, understand this, कि she had this in her mind कि जब मेरे travelers, मेरे traders जाएंगे, they would need water, and the water has to be clean and palatable. So this is how the well should be. And even today, the well has her name inscribed on it, Ahilyabai Holkar. So that's the kind of thought process she had. Second thing which I would want to share here to your viewers, Prafulji, is that हम सबको पता है गंगा माता हमारे लिए कितनी पवित्र है और गंगा जल का उपयोग हमारे लिए कितना पवित्र है, even in our day-to-day rituals or in the religious rituals as well. She very well knew this importance, and वो जानते थे कि नॉर्थ में जहाँ जितने भी रह रहे हैं वो तो गंगा जल का उपयोग कर पा रहे हैं, बट जो साउथ में मेरे राष्ट्र के रह रहे हैं उनको इसका जो है उपयोग करने का मौका नहीं मिल रहा है. She ensured that Ganga Jal reaches to more than 30 temples down south. Now, when I'm talking about south, I'm telling about Kerala, Karnataka, even Tamil Nadu. So this was a vision. She ensured that Ganga Jal reaches to their temple and the necessary puja rituals can be performed. So जल का महत्व जानना, गंगा जल का महत्व जानना, जल का अपने लोगों के लिए महत्व जानना, this is the kind of thought process a leader has, the vision a leader has, and that is why she ensured that this kind of entire administration is being done.
This is such a fascinating thing, because if you see even in terms of contemporary relevance, this all these issues still matter. All the debates in present day, whether about state or nation, about status of women, about environment, all these things. And I'm sure, if we even keep talking about her governance model, her revenue system, this perhaps 30-40 minute show would not be sufficient. But lastly, what I would like you to ask as secretary of this Tri Shatabdi Samaro Samiti, what would be your call to the people? What would be your call to the intellectuals, researchers, students, youth of this country, especially women or young women, youth of this country? What should they do in this coming year? How can they contribute and be part of this celebration? As a secretary of this committee, what would be your call for them?
Thank you, Prafulji. I would answer this question. Before this, I wanted to share two things, if the time permits,
Yeah, yeah.
because these are very important few things. आपने 7 बार की बात की, तो
Mhm.
आज हम सब जानते हैं कि revenue system में 712 is very important, and this is there in the written notes, which the historians have found out that she ensured that a normal person has in total 12 saplings which are being planted in and around his or her home. And out
Hmm.
of that, 7 would be taken care of the government, and 5 would should be taken care by the person who has
Person.
planted it. And that is how Saat Bar came into existence. And even the fruits which a tree is bearing out of that 5 trees are absolutely that person's, and 7 the government would be taking care. So understand कि तब से उन्होंने ये प्रोसेस के पूरा जो भार है वो उस व्यक्ति पे ना आ जाए और पूरा
Hmm.
भार गवर्नमेंट पे भी ना आ जाए, तो किस सामंजस्य से उसको अच्छे से तालमेल बिठा के इसका काम किया जाए. दैट इज वन थिंग. द सेकंड इज वन ऑफ हर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन क्वालिटी विच आई वुड वांट टू शेयर हियर इज दैट she took over the charge in 1766-67 as
Hmm.
subedar, and she ensured that every day darbar is being held, and
Hmm.
she is there in her darbar in between her subjects, and she used to listen to them. One such thing happened was कि भील का आक्रमण जो है इंदौर की तरफ जो रास्ता आ रहा था, वहां पे भील का बहुत ज्यादा आक्रमण हो रहा था. जो भी टूरिस्ट ट्रैवलर पैसेंजर्स वहां से जा रहे थे उनको उनको लूटा जा रहा था वहां से. एंड दिस केम टू हर नोटिस. सो शी व्हेन द भील्स वेर कैप्चर्ड दे वर कॉल्ड इन हर दरबार. So everyone was confirmed in the thought process. Now Lokmata would actually punish them with the hardest of the punishment. So this is again written in the history that she closes her eyes as if she is meditating, and after some time she opens her eyes and gives her verdict. And the verdict aghast all people. She says that from now onwards, any and every person traveling through this road coming towards Indore, the traveler, tourists, passerbys, their protections, jimmedari would be the responsibility would be on the wheels who were till now looting them would be on the. And she asked actually first of all that why do you do so. The भीलों ने यही कहा कि हमें और कोई कुछ आता नहीं है, that we don't know any other skills, this is what we have known since ages, so we don't know what to do. So this was a thought process कि भक्षक को रक्षक कैसे बनाया जाए. And not only that, um, he also gave the hilly area land to them for the agriculture so that उनका और सब चीजें जो है उस चीज की भी ध्यान रखी जाए. Now understand the kind of administrator she was. One more incident which I want to share to your viewers here is Linga Charan ki puja. There are two things which I want to share here. जब वो महेश्वर में गए तो this was her daily ritual that every morning 108 ब्राह्मण लिंग चरण की पूजा करते थे. उनका श्लोक बोलते थे and entire puja it used to be a serene environment. बट उनके ध्यान में लोक माता के ये आया कि श्रावण का महीना आ रहा है तो क्या किया जाए. एंड दैट इज व्हेन शी केम अप विद दिस एंटायर थॉट प्रोसेस ऑफ कोटि लिंग चरण. दैट इज 1 करोड़ शिवलिंग बने जाएंगे एंड 1008 ब्राह्मण पूरी पूजा करेंगे लिंग चरण की.
Hmm.
अब इससे क्या हुआ, दो चीजें हुई इससे. उन्होंने देखा कि इसमें I would need people who would bring mud. The swimmers would bring mud. There would be people who would put their shops as for flowers and other religious things. There would be travelers and tourists who would be coming there. So money churning, people would be able to earn there. So वो भी चीज होगी. Second, since it is attached to a religious ceremony out there, they'll have this thought process of Sanatan in them and the reason why it has to be there. तो जब 1008 the history says so that जब 1008 ब्राह्मण जब वो श्लोक का उच्चारण कर रहे थे, it was goosebumpish kind of a moment. And yes, even while sharing this to you today, even I can have that kind of vision in my mind that वो कितना they used to feel close to Ishwar. That was the kind of environment it was. So ये बताने के पीछे का कारण है जो आपने मुझे प्रश्न पूछा कि as a secretary what I would want or I would wish the people to do in this entire year, and not only limited to this year but in coming years as well. That जब आप लोक माता अहिल्याबाई होलकर को पढ़ेंगे, unfortunately lot of history is not available about her, but इच्छा होती है तो ईश्वर को भी पाया जा सकता है. तो अगर आपकी इच्छा है आप उनको पढ़ सकते हैं. देयर आर मेनी अदर वेज एंड मीन्स बाय लिसनिंग टू योर पॉडकास्ट लाइक दिस. Organizer puts up wonderful articles, they can read that as well, and there are many other modes to know and understand her life, her thought process, her way of living, and how she actually managed not only her own Holkar Rajya but looking after the entire Hindu Rashtra as her own nation. तो ऐसे अहिल्याबाई होलकर और ऐसे बहुत सारे हमारे हिस्ट्री में ऐसे किरदार हो गए हैं जिन्होंने अपने जीवन को जिस हिसाब से जिया है, उन्होंने जो कार्य किए हैं अपने जीवन में, आप केवल उनको पढ़ोगे तो not only you would be proud of the historians you have in your golden history, the historical figures you have in your golden history, but also you would get motivated, inspired by their work, and this will help not only you but your coming generation because you will work for your nation, for the upliftment and the betterment of your society, your nation, and of course the generation to come. So please रीड हर लोकमाता अहिल्याबाई होलकर और अपने कॉलेज, अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी, अपने स्कूल्स, अपने जो भी आजू बाजू जितने भी लोग हैं उनको उनके बारे में बताइए, खुद उनके बारे में जानिए और जहां तक हो सके अपने जीवन में उनके ये जितने भी थॉट प्रोसेसेस है अगर आप अपने जीवन में उतारेंगे, you I can reassure that you would have a wonderful life to lead ahead.
Thank you so much, Captain Mira Siddharth, the way